Hi, greetings from New York. This is really in response to the entire discussion that's been unfolding, and it's really good. I like this actually. This is one of the liver wires I've gotten my hands on in a while, as far as a real discussion that has emotional involvement, intellectual involvement, that's also moving the field forward in some degree, maybe in some small degree. So I think it's really valid, and there are many different positions that are being exhibited and addressed that are valid positions, but they're coming from extremely different sets of cultural filtrations. So my first recommendation here, sort of as a little side thing, is Patrick Lencioni has a course. It's on CD. I like it because I like the way it's read. The 5 dysfunctions of a team, and it is very germane, very, very useful for us to listen to that. I would really recommend that. I think that Peter would enjoy it a lot and gain a lot from it and gain a lot of perspective, and I think everyone else would too. But as particularly someone in a trainer capacity, and even more particularly if your trainer capacity is going to overlap any with business consulting and working with group dynamics in a business setting, Lencioni is a really valuable resource. So I'd listen to him. You could pick up the book too. It's a very quick read, and it's a lot about the sort of how teams work and groups work, and it seems like these are really observed data. This is not something he just made up. I have a strong feeling. That's my mind read. These days, I've learned, okay, every time you mind read, you got to like put on your little mind read thing. Mind read. So anyway, in the next 2 videos that I'm going to have following this, I'm going to speak a great deal to sleight of mouth as a little body of, one of the little sub-bodies of NLP. And what I have noticed structurally in terms of the process of our discussion is that we have often, I think this happens with a sense of siege or a sense of needing to defend a position. One of the things that seems to be just our little go-to spot is the idea of intent. What is intent? And I find that kind of a mystifying concept, actually. So as far as intent goes, in the intent frame, I will speak to the intent frame along with the other 13 patterns. But because we tend to kind of glom onto this intent challenge, which is a very favored one of John and Carmen's, and I think it's a very legitimate challenge. It's just that there are many other ways to approach it, and there are, from Dilta's perspective, there are 13, and I think that his work could be reworked and developed into more contemporary forms. But this is why I was sort of trying to make a little thrust toward suggesting that people do read the Sleight of Mouth, Robert Dilta's Sleight of Mouth, and as well there are other materials on it, but really think about it and understand how the processes work in terms of things like changing frame size, chunking. I did a whole thing on chunking, and I think that is really, really important for all of us, especially in these things. Can you, under stress, can you, in a sort of a state of challenge, really access 3 logical levels? Can you chunk up, work on your plane, chunk down? And I'm going to try to somewhat restate intent and outcome, or intent and consequences, as timeline issues. I think that's probably a right moment for us to start rethinking how our timeline and sleight of mouth work together, and then they cohere into a really effective unit. So I will be addressing those. Please do listen to it. I'm going to be trying to bang through a lot of information in 15 or so minutes. So that's going to be a lot. There's just a lot of stuff to quickly try to grasp. But I think if this conversation continues, and hopefully it will have some heat, hopefully it will have some passion and strong disagreement. That's great. As sort of fronting, or what do we call it? Highlighting cultural differences. I think there are a lot of very, very significant cultural differences in what one says, how one says it, what things mean, things that we just we have such deep assumptions about. We just never question them, and now they're sort of surfacing. We're forwarding those things. They're being brought up. So things are being brought up, and how we respond to things, is also coming up. So we're all making different sorts of sense in different kinds of ways, and there's a lot of interaction. So check it out, please. But I totally invite you to, for a while, maybe lighten up a little bit on the intent challenge and think about the other 13. Because that's where the real growth is going to take place. Find the stuff you don't normally do, the types of things, like, can you pop out some great metaphors instead of defensively moving to intent, or move very sort of proactively. Because I think when you start questioning intent a lot, that also somehow, and I haven't quite worked this out in my mind, gets balled in with reactivity and reactive thought and reactive framing. And I think when you move to consequence, you're subtly, in an intriguing way, reframing toward a proactive, kind of a proactive dimension. And how this reactive dimension and proactive dimension and timeline and intent versus consequence, and this kind of interesting thing that sits in the middle, this kind of core of the sleight of mouth, is this belief cluster, or complex equivalence, or this causes this, or this is this, etc. So it's all there, but let's use this thing we're in the middle of right now as a glorious opportunity to really wallow in all the stuff we've learned. It's kind of like, this is a great time to get up on stage and really show your chops and enjoy it. And even though it may be uncomfortable, irritating, alien to your thinking, it's a phenomenal opportunity to really go out there and discover how these things work, and all these new ways to conceptualize the tools that we have. So, go for it, man. Lay it on. Make them 3-decker sandwiches. This is time to let it rip. Yeehaw.